Hello, and welcome to Ask Ben, the witticisms and wisdom of Benjamin Franklin. In this program, we attempt to answer your questions as we think Ben would. Today, we have a letter from Mr. Joseph Jorgensen of Springfield, Massachusetts. Mr. Jorgensen writes, Dear Ben, is it true that you once owned slaves? Say it ain't so, Ben. Oh, it be so, Joe. Regrettably, 'tis true. I did own 2 slaves many years ago. They helped me in my print shop and at home. After a while, they ran away, not from any mistreatment from me, I can assure you. However, I'm convinced it was from a universal desire for freedom inherent in all people that led them to flee. And there was a large community of free African Americans in Philadelphia ready to take them in. I did not bother to pursue the runaways. Unfortunately, I am guilty of printing many paid advertisements for the return of other runaways in my paper, the Pennsylvania Gazette. I also ran ads for slave auctions held in the city. It wasn't until I was older that I came to detest the institution of slavery, our country's original sin. You see, to me, as a young businessman, it was business and profit as usual without taking into consideration the human cost for the enslaved. I should have refused to print those ads, and I never should have owned slaves in the first place, much to my ongoing regret, my eternal regret. And so it was that in 1787, after finally seeing the light, as it were, I became the president of the Pennsylvania Society for Promoting the Abolition of Slavery. The society not only advocated the eradication of slavery, but made efforts to integrate formerly enslaved people into Pennsylvania society. I regret that I did not speak out against slavery earlier in my career, only later in my life. It was only after helping to draft the U.S. Constitution that I became a true dedicated opponent of slavery. I wrote several essays on behalf of the society calling for the end of the slave trade, and I urged mercy and justice for this distressed race while pointing out the utter incompatibility of slavery with the character of the American people and the ideals of freedom and equality boldly set forth in the Constitution. Better late than never, I suppose. Now, some people say I was a man ahead of my time. That may be true, I suppose, for some things, but I'm afraid I was tardy on this momentous issue. As another great leader of a future generation avowed, if slavery is not wrong, then nothing is wrong. And I strongly agree. Thank you for your question, Mr. Jorgensen. Next, we have a letter from Mrs. Penny Parker of Parkersburg, West Virginia. Say that 10 times fast. She writes, Dear Ben, is there really a condition called the Korvorka? Interesting question. In the Latvian Orthodox Church, Korvorka, roughly translated, means the lure of the animal. It is a curse that is said to afflict some individuals, primarily men, possessed of certain beguiling charms, like a Don Juan or a Lothario, for instance. But I can assure you, Mrs. Parker, the Korvorka is just a myth, like the Yeti or Sasquatch, or even the Loch Ness Monster. Nothing to concern yourself about, Mrs. P. Funny thing is, though, it has been suggested that I once was cursed with this very same condition. Now, I must admit to having had a certain, shall we say, animal magnetism in my heyday, but that was such a long time ago. And I've since been cured of this disorder, which was a very different affliction altogether than the mythical Korvorka. Well, thank you for your questions, one and all. And thank you for watching as always. Now, if you have a question you'd like to ask Ben, please email me at bcarlton@gcls.org. He'll see that I get the message. Well, for now, I will say so long